Hey, and welcome to this week's episode of Ignite News. I'm Andrew Cameron.
And I'm Malika Aldridge, and today we'll be taking a look at some of the documentaries by the third-year journalism students.
Let's take a look. Over the past 20 years, e-cigarette usage has skyrocketed, causing an epidemic that stems across all different demographics. Malika Aldridge, Rodiato DeWoye, and Joanne Walters takes a closer look at why the usage has been skyrocketing.
For many years, smoking cigarettes was a norm in society. It took decades for people to realize the harm cigarettes were doing to their bodies. In 2003, China developed an electronic cigarette device to help people quit smoking. Since then, e-cigarettes or vapes have been quickly emerging all over the world. E-cigarettes or vapes are electronic devices that are tobacco-free, yet still provide the dopamine reliefs that come with nicotine. Vapes have taken on many different forms over the last decade. However, the latest and more popular kind is a pod or disposable device. My name is Malika Aldridge, and I noticed that many people around me have developed an addiction to vaping, whether they were former cigarette smokers or not. But I want to know why. Why is it so addicting? Is it the experience, the flavors, the nicotine? I personally don't know, so I went interviewing people to find out. I spoke to a vape club manager, a doctor, 2 vapors, and even a teen vapor to find out. First, I needed to understand why certain people vape, so I asked Kimberly Yvonne and Cassie Apperlew to explain why vaping is a part of their daily routine.
I had a friend and her boyfriend worked at a vape store, so naturally she got one, and then they tasted much better than cigarettes that I don't quite have vertigo, but I'm very sensitive to getting dizzy, so that head rush of a cigarette sometimes, it would be one puff too many would put me over the edge if I was out drinking with friends or anything like that. So the idea of having a vape that didn't smell and seemed more professional was kind of what appealed to me about it. But just like having it on me and okay, I'm bored right now, I want to do something with my hands, I'll grab it. And then, so it's not really the flavoring, but it's definitely between like the nicotine and the habit of just something easy to grab to do something with my hands.
Logistically, it's convenient. It's one of those mindless things that I can just do. Like I can just, half the time I don't even realize that I'm doing it. You know what I mean? It's always in my hand. It's always beside me. Whether I'm like working or, driving, I find that I have a hard time driving if I don't have it with me. I don't know. The logistics, what else? I get to do it inside too. There's no, I don't have to go outside of the office. I don't have to go outside of my apartment to smoke anymore. I don't have to bundle up in the cold weather in the winter. Doing it in an environment where I feel super duper comfortable and cozy. I can be in my footy pajamas, smoking or vaping. I think that has a lot to do with it. Just the fact that I can do it constantly.
It's clear that some people vape for various reasons, depending on the person. But with the minimal research out there, do vapors ever wonder what it's doing to their bodies?
There's not enough research about it, and even though it's lacking a lot of the chemicals that cigarettes have, we don't know what else is in it. And I think when I first kind of started to as well, and those big modification ones, like the big ones, were popular, and then you really started hearing about popcorn lung. And then people making underground pods and flavors and stuff, and so that kind of made me nervous, and that made me take a little bit more caution, and that was actually what kind of stopped me vaping the very first time that I started. So I do have concerns because I know I can't quite walk like I used to, and I can't quite go up the stairs like I used to, and I haven't even been to the gym since I started vaping again, so I don't honestly want to know what's going to happen if I try to squat. I don't. So I definitely have a lot of health concerns as well too, especially just the unknown. My biggest fear is especially how much I'm hitting it. If one day I'm going to be I myself over.
Respirology specialist Dr. Marcel Tunks is a professor at McMaster University who sat down to explain the effects vaping can have on one's body.
The general principle is that you are heating up a substance, some kind of solvent, to dissolve a drug, whether it's nicotine or a cannabis product, and usually with some kind of flavoring to make the experience more pleasant. and then you inhale it. So these are a number of different chemicals that can have different effects on the lungs. They're all going to be irritants. They're all going to cause irritation. So cough, you're much more likely to develop asthma if you vape as opposed to not vaping. Bronchitis, so your friends might catch a cold, but you end up with a cough that goes on for weeks or months instead of just getting a cold like your friends do. So those would be the most common things, that you're inhaling irritants that either irritate the lining of the lung or they cause irritation or injury to the immune cells. The irritation or injury to the immune cells can cause further lung injury on its own. It can impair the immune function within your lungs, so you're more likely to get infections, or it can trigger those immune cells to injure your lungs. And that's where you hear about things like popcorn lung and that sort of thing, hypersensitivity pneumonitis, lung injuries, the kind of scary but rare events that land people in hospital from vaping. Those are mostly related to the immune system reacting to those chemicals, especially the flavoring agents, sometimes the solvents, so the vegetable glycerin or the propylene glycol.
I am so concerned about what I'm doing to my body, but can I stop? Not really. I don't know if there will ever be a time in my life where I can stop, mostly just because I'm in school right now, I work full time, my life is pretty stressful. This is kind of what gets me through the day and what keeps my head from spinning out of control when I'm working. I don't know, maybe if my life calms down, I'll find it in myself to quit, but I think right now with where I'm at, it's really, really hard. But I do panic sometimes about what I'm doing to myself. I've been smoking since I was 11 or 12, so I'm already over 10 years on nicotine, and I'm I don't know what's in this, you know what I mean? I don't know what I'm putting inside my body.
The drug is what keeps you addicted, right? So the nicotine is the main thing. The nicotine in vape products comes from tobacco. It's all the tobacco industry. It's been the tobacco industry from the beginning as far as nicotine vapes. And that's what makes you a return customer for life, is the nicotine part of things.
When I asked Vape Club manager Stuart Gold about what draws people to vaping, here's what he had to say.
I would say most people are looking to replace cigarettes. I would hope so anyways. I got off smoking cigarettes about 6 years ago now with vaping and haven't looked back ever since, haven't touched a cigarette since. I think most people are looking to use vapes as a way to curb their cigarette addiction or their cigarette use. Of course, there's still nicotine in vapes, and nicotine is addictive. But again, the avoidance of all those extra hundreds of chemicals that are in cigarettes that make them even much more addictive and are even much more harmful than vapes is definitely a reason why people go to vapes instead. And also the experience of the flavors too. There's something to be said for that as well. If you look at cigarettes, they all taste like cigarettes, like tobacco or like chemicals. With vapes, you've got this wide assortment of tropical flavors and different flavors to choose from.
One of the big issues with vaping, though, is you are at least doubling or tripling the risk of going on to smoke cigarettes later anyway. And as a smoking cessation aid, it just doesn't work that well. So it helps a little bit. So an individual person might quit smoking by switching to vaping. Most of them are going to still be vaping a year later. But on the whole, it has increased the rate of smoking in our population because kids are smoking more than they were before.
In Canada, the legal age to vape is 19 years old, and due to the amount of underage vapors, Canada recently banned 50 millimeters of nicotine in vape juice to reduce the appeal to youth. However, that hasn't stopped all youth from vaping. I asked 16-year-old Lincoln High about his experiences as a teen vapor. So, when did you start vaping?
Probably when I was 13-ish. It was just a bunch of my friends all had one at the same time, and it all came in a wave. And then I ended up trying one, and I liked it, and I got my own. And then it's just been ever since then. I've just been kind of using one. When I'm out socially and stuff, I don't know, it's always around me, so I'm okay, well, I might as well do it. Kind of hard to ignore and not use one or be around one. Definitely when I'm out with people, that's when I do it the most probably. When I play sports and stuff, I can't breathe as well and definitely can't play for as long. Yeah, I definitely cough a lot, pretty often.
Kids have always been the target for the tobacco companies, so for nicotine products in general, and for the cannabis industry as well. Kids are more susceptible to addiction in general, their brains are still developing and it's easier for those addiction pathways to form when they get exposed to addictive substances. And they also perceive risk differently. So the risk, the parts of the brain that are involved with understanding risk don't mature really until you hit around age 25. It's far better for those companies to target all their social media and other influences on the younger people because it's easier to get them addicted. As far as the lungs themselves, lung development does continue until age 25, and it is possible to injure the lungs in a way that they stop developing. So your lungs never get as good as they should have been, and it can cause permanent injury later on. But the lung side of things, it's not good for you no matter what. There's no one who's going to say that inhaling these substances is good for your lungs in any way. The big problem is the addiction side of things. It'll be decades before we know all the different health effects in the long term. We know in the short term, if you vape for a few weeks, a few months, we know that you're going to have more respiratory symptoms than somebody who doesn't vape. And we know that some people land in the hospital, some people end up with permanent injuries to their lungs, which are relatively rare, but 10, 20 years out, we don't know.
So there you have it. Vaping is indeed in a rising epidemic. Whether that's teens or adults, we don't know what's actually going to happen later on. But for now, we know it's an addicting substance that can cause respiratory issues later on in life. Students all over Ontario, including our very own Hamilton, are experiencing a housing crisis. Cassie Aberlew and Kimberly Yvonne tell us more.
When you talk to students about the housing crisis, the word lucky comes up a lot. I'm lucky I found a place to stay. I'm lucky because it could be worse. I'm lucky because I have a landlord who looks after my needs. I'm lucky because I have good roommates. But why is it luck? Why do students have to be lucky to have a roof over their heads and a safe place to stay? All over the country, students are relying on pure luck when it comes to finding a place to stay during college. Median rent across the country has nearly doubled in the last 4 years, and areas like Toronto and Vancouver boast an average rent of $2,500 per month. If that's a price you can't afford as a student, your options are staying in a homeless shelter or dropping out. Even smaller cities like Hamilton are starting to feel the effects of the rising costs of housing. Interest rates and inflation have skyrocketed, and so has rent. Desperation in student populations is not hard to find. Take me, for example. I'm a student at Mohawk College in Hamilton, and in order for me to have a place to stay and live comfortably, I need to work 3 jobs. Let's break down my finances. After all of my essentials are paid off, I'm left with around $1,130. That's not bad, but compare that to the median student's income, you'd have to live without a lot of stuff. Typically in your first year of school, you're able to stay in a student residence on campus, but that's only for your first year. And I know at Mohawk College in particular, they want around $10,000 per school year. They want most of that up front. But not everybody has that kind of money laying around. So you're stuck looking in the rental market, where you can share a house with 6 to sometimes 15 other people for around $800 per month, or you can rent an apartment for an average price of $1,700 per month. That's if you're lucky. Because sometimes looking for an apartment when you're a student sounds like this.
Hi there, I just had a quick question for you.
Yes.
Do you rent to students?
No.
Last year, one of my classmates couldn't find a place to stay in Hamilton. She spent 12 hours a week commuting from Bruce County, ruining her physical and mental health. She left the program after a suicide attempt.
Commuting 12 hours a week, you run out of hours and you stop being able to function as a human being. Everything I had been doing caught up to me, and it ended up putting me in the hospital. And at that point, I had to kind of reflect and say, is this worth it to keep going? This isn't going to improve unless something gives, and ultimately the program had to give altogether because there was no way to fix the individual issues without having that housing component in place. Talked to professors, I talked to student success advisor. I basically got "damn that sucks" from 90% of those sources. This has been so much. It has been so challenging to deal with. It's ruined the future I saw in the career. It's so frightening, the idea of going back to that situation, that if I go back, I'm just going back to that life where I wasn't sure it was worth living.
Students are stuck between a rock and a hard place. All options seem impossible, but even if you find a spot in a student house, you'll still have some problems.
It doesn't really feel like a home. It feels like you're living in like a encaged environment, and you're just being watched 24/7. Like literally, we have cameras all around the outskirts of our house, and there's a sign that says like, "Smile, you're on camera." And it's just like every time you walk into the house, you see that sign, and you're just like, you're reminded that this is not your home. This is like a facility that you're being watched, and I'm kind of stuck there now because looking around is terrible. Like, your chances are that you'll find something that's reasonably priced, because remember, I'm paying for a bedroom, and I'm paying around $800 for a bedroom. I go to that house just in the mornings to change my clothes, shower, grab my belongings, and then I'm off to school or work, and I spend my nights at my boyfriend's house because I'm just that uncomfortable. Imagine coming out of your towel in the shower, and you think you're safe, and then you just hear like voices downstairs, and you're like, that's weird, like, who's that, But you find other grown men from different working companies that you have no idea, never introduced themselves. They just kind of had the keypad door code, and they just walked in. So it's just like, oh, hello, like, can I help you? Thank God I don't have the issues where most people have, like with dirt and rats and rodents. Like, that's good, but I feel like what I'm going through is just as worse.
International students rely on luck even more than domestic students when it comes to finding housing. You would think that colleges and universities would be able to spend money on housing supports for students who are new to the country, but it looks like that's not in the budget.
My name is Julian Orlando. I'm from Bogota, Colombia. I couldn't find any housing on like internet or whatever, so I have family in Montreal. They came to Hamilton and they picked me up. And I spent like 2 months in Montreal. I had another friend called Valentina. She's from Colombia too, and I met her online in like the English program before taking the journalism program. And she was like moving to a new house, and she told me there was like a spare room, and I will take it. I was very lucky because I couldn't find anything online and couldn't find anything like asking other people if they have another spare room, or they know someone that's like renting out a place or something. I was very lucky that I met her, and well, she helped me out. She let me know as soon as she knew there was like a spare room.
I discovered that I was going to move here less than a week before I actually moved to here. So I was in a rush, so I just got the hotel, spent 14 days in the hotel, and when I was in the hotel I was looking for places. And it was quite hard because all the places that I found, they were very expensive, like more than $100 more than I pay right now, or they were female only. And then I remember that I met Julian because of a coffee club thing that we went together by chance. And I asked him, like, is there a place like gender mixed, because I only find like female only things? And he was, yeah, and there's a spare room. I was like, can I talk to the landlord? And so I was very lucky as well, because it just happened to me that know somebody that was just moving to Canada as well. So if I didn't have his contact, most likely I wouldn't have a place to be. And when I see what happened to another international students, I realize how much of luck I had. Like, it was insane.
And how much, when you guys were living together, how much were you paying for your rooms?
It depends on the room that you are. At first it was 500
yeah.
for both because we are in the basement and the basement rooms are cheaper.
Hey, sorry, how many students did you say were living in the house at the time?
7.
It's no secret that being a landlord at the end of the day is about profit. But in order to fully understand how they work, how profitable they are, and how landlords really think of student tenants, we needed to talk to one.
The nice thing with student rentals is, there's more money in it than there is a single family. A single family, if you can make a couple $100 profit a month, you're okay. Student rentals, there's a bit more than that. So I would think that when I started this doing student rentals, if you had a 5 or 6 bedroom house, you could pull in, $2,400 a month rent.
Mm-hmm.
At that same time, if I wanted to rent that house to a single family, I would be looking at maybe getting $1,200 to $1,300 a month rent.
Yeah.
Now we're in a situation where if I was to charge even like one house, I'm getting $2,825 a month rent. I have to pay the utilities though.
Mm-hmm.
If I was to rent that house to a single family, I could probably get $2,200 or $2,300 a month for that same house with a detached garage.
Yeah.
So I'm only getting about $400 a month more, but keep in mind, I'm paying the utilities. On top of paying utilities, I'm also having a turnover probably every year, if not every other year, in which case I go in and I paint a bunch of rooms. I hire cleaners to come in. I spend 2 days there getting the house ready for the next group.
Yeah.
So if I was to rent to a single family, I'm only losing $100 a month, but I don't have all the headaches, and I don't have the turnover, and I don't have the utility costs, which sometimes could be the cost of utilities now sometimes exceeds $400 a month.
Yeah.
So it used to be much more lucrative to have students. It's almost got to a tipping point where it's not. So I don't know if that's maybe the problem in Hamilton. I don't know, but I would suggest that maybe the people are starting to say, it's just going to be easier to rent to a single family and I'm going to make the same amount of money.
Yeah.
Because if you bought a house 10 or 12 years ago, like I did, your mortgage payments are under $1,000 a month. So you can throw a single family in there and still make, almost $1,000 profit a month off a single family. It used to be $100 or $200 a month you were happy with, but now you could make $1,000.
Turns out, even if you get a good landlord who doesn't overcharge for rent and fixes things on time, the mindset is that vulnerable students and where they stay are nothing more than a money-making machine. It's no wonder we're seeing what we're seeing.
For our next documentary, third-year journalism student Oliver Hunter gives us a closer look at a new start of a new life. Let's take a look.
When you move to another country and leave everything you have behind, a lot of people say how brave you are and how proud you should be of your decision. But I'm not brave, and I'm not proud of my decision. I just want to survive. Hi there, my name is Oliver, and I'm a Brazilian living in Canada. I'm a person just like you, except that in order to look like what I look like right now, I've been forcing testosterone on my body for 6 years now. I was not supposed to have this face, or this body, or even this voice. I am a transgender guy. And I'm not the only transgender guy that had the idea of coming to a country like Canada because Brazil is not the best place to be a transgender person, and Canada pretty much is way safer for us.
My name is Bernardo. I'm a transgender man from Brazil. I'm here in Canada for about a year now. Brazil still is in a very bad economical situation. So when I graduated from university, I didn't have a lot of opportunity. But I would say The reason why I chose Canada specifically as well is because I knew that being trans here is significantly easier when compared to other countries.
For me, I have a childhood friend. We have been friends for 25 years now. You know how much hate crimes happen with LGBT people in our country, so when an openly LGBT-phobic person was elected president, he told me, "Hey dude, come to Canada. Let's continue our journey together here, you know?" Hey, what about... When did you realize you are a transgender man?
I don't think I had like the vocabulary to describe what I was until like high school. In a way, like I kind of always knew, but I didn't really have like the tools to really name what I was feeling. Like I didn't know what dysphoria was. I didn't know that, you know, you could be like a trans man.
It's weird when you see everybody growing up and you realize how you're going to be when you grow up, and you feel like you're the one that not even in your worst nightmares. Realizing you're trans, it was always on the small things, you know, asking for buying clothes on the boys sections with the excuse they are more comfortable. When you could select the gender of the video game character, I would always pick male.
I don't know if you had that experience, but like for me, like growing up, I've always heard like, oh, you are too manly. And then when I decided to transition, suddenly
You were not manly enough.
yeah, and that's
I got
crazy.
that.
Like
I got
that's it's basically, oh, like whatever you're doing, stop doing, and just like conform to whatever you have to conform.
When you decide to do something about it, it's a long process, and you're not the only one that ended up get caught in this, you know, right before I do the surgery. My mom said that in order to accept me as her son, first she would have to kill me as her daughter. Even now, when someone say I'm too girly, someone even as a joke say like, "Oh, are you sure you're a guy? You're so girly," and stuff like that. Really, I want to tear my face off. That will just kill me inside in a way that sometimes I won't be able to look in the mirror for like literally days. Are you liking Canada so far?
Yes. I don't feel the need to be somebody else. Like I don't feel like I have the pressure to assimilate both as a trans person and both as a Brazilian person. I can keep being me. So like I don't picture myself doing what I'm doing, which is like starting my life from scratch and like moving to a different country with my partner and like doing all this effort to live in any other country.
In a way, I kind of feel like immigrating is a lot like dying. I mean, you leave so much behind. All of those people from your previous life that you don't have anymore. I mean, you can still call them and you can still message them, but it's not the same thing. Then you have to redo everything in a place in which nobody knows you. Partially, this might be why the idea of immigrating and, you know, going to a different country was so appealing for me. In a way, I could kill that version of me and start in a new place, having this new life in which everybody knows me for who I am.
I really like Canada. This is the first time that I feel like I'm human, that I don't feel that I have to be afraid of letting people know who I am. However, of course I love Brazil. There's no English word that explains what we call saudade, a word you use to express a feeling of longing, melancholy, or nostalgia that we feel about something we don't have anymore. I always spend a long time by myself, so, in a way, I thought that since I spend basically all my free time in Brazil playing video games, I'd be fine. I can play anywhere. True, I can play anywhere. I still can play the same games that I used to play by myself in Brazil, here in Canada. But, of course, I can't play with my friends anymore as we used to. It took me a long time to find people that I could say I belong with. People that had my humor, my way of enjoying life, my way of thinking, and, of course, respect who I am. When I finally found them, I left them. Not because I want to, but because I was tired of playing this game called real life on hard mode.
A new band formed at Mohawk College called Bent Neck and the Joints. Third-year journalism students Caitlin Charbonneau, Julian Orlando, and Andrew Kamen documented their journey to their first show. Let's take a peek.
Music is some sort of magic.
Music's all about just like fun and enjoying your life.
It's like a vehicle for us to all express ourselves and us to work on our art.
My name is Diana Herrera. I'm from Colombia, and I'm the drummer of the band.
My name's Doug McBrien. I play guitar in the band, Bent Neck and the Joints.
So my name is Brandon. I play guitar, I sing, and I write the lyrics, well, for some of the songs, like half the songs for Bent Neck and the Joints.
I'm Lenny, and I play bass in Bent Neck and the Joints.
So most of us are students in the music program at Mohawk, and Brandon and I, who originally we were trying to make the band together, we both we play a bit of jazz, but we're not super into the jazz and wanted to play some other music.
So we got together, we started showing each other, we've always talked about like songwriting and lyricism and making songs, and we started showing each other all our songs, and we were getting excited, like, oh my God, we might have material, like we do have material, like let's get some people together. We constantly were on this fence for a couple weeks of like asking Dee, because we thought Dee would not want to play with us at all, and like at first we were like, okay, like we'll ask her, and then even if she says yes, she'll hear the music and not be into it.
They told me, hey, we're starting a band. Well, we have this band, we don't know if it's gonna be your thing because it's gonna be country, but we need a drummer, so do you want to give it a shot? Let's see what happens.
Lenny's a good friend from another band who we got to play bass after not being able to find a bass player for a while.
I guess they needed a bassist, so he was like, do you want to play bass for us? And I was like, yeah, I do.
I started playing classical guitar when I was like 6, I suppose, and then did that for a number of years. Felt like I didn't learn a thing. Then started taking private lessons with outside of a structured, like established school, and then really started to enjoy it. Started playing music that I liked and stuff like that.
I tried to be a video game designer before. I thought that studying graphic design was the path that I should take for that. I realized by hitting a wall that it wasn't for me. One of my friends asked me, well, why not doing music for video games? I gave it a shot. I enjoyed every second of it. But the problem is that as I was creating electronic music, as I was composing, as I was being part of bands and everything, I realized that my compositions were getting dull. Such a waste if I didn't harness that power, if I didn't use it to, well, make people feel good.
My life was this interesting mix of like, I'd work for 8-9 hours a day, and then the second I'd finish work, I would just play guitar. Like you're only this age once in your life, like might as well try.
So my dad was a bass player, and so he bought a bass when he was like 17, and so it's just been like was sitting in our basement like all through my life. And I was like, I want to play, and so then I just started practicing.
We don't really have like a set specific way that we go about creating a song, but usually Brandon and I are the two people who brought songs to the band so far.
I mean, all my songs start on an acoustic guitar with just me in my room, whether it's writing a guitar part or just strumming chords, like, and once I have, you know, a general idea of like lyrics, melody, and structure, I think at that point, if it's like a song that I want to be for the band, like I think at that point it's no longer, like once I bring it to the band, it's no longer my song, it's now the band's song.
And everyone's a fantastic musician, so we can play it once or twice and then everyone kind of chimes in with their parts. But I'd say for the most part, everyone kind of has their own individual input for everything that they do. It's not just one person's vision like imposing on this song, it's kind of a collection of everyone else's ideas and identities.
This show's like our baby.
This is like the first show that we have as a band, and at least myself personally, have ever like organized.
Oh yeah,
This is our band show.
It's gonna be like our first big show in which we're the headliner.
Yeah. We've reached out, we've gotten with bands who are our friends to like come play a show with us rather than like hopping on another bill or like last minute opening for a band.
Which is not that bad, but you know, it's kind of special.
The show's also been big because we've been promoting it really hard. Of course. Like, I don't know, we promote our other shows, but this one, like, you know, I don't know, I feel like we've been really pushing.
I think that comes with like the fact that it's our first.
Yeah, this is
we're organizing the show. If it goes wrong, it's our fault. No one shows up. It's our fault.
But it's exciting because we have a bunch of friends that are coming, which is so nice.
Yeah, it looks like it's gonna be a great turnout and a really, really f***ing fun show.
Yes, let's get ready to leave. Play this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah. But now.
Oh yeah. Stay out of queue. Stay out of.
Yeah, yeah. Just for a couple big moments. And we're back in the joints. So.
It's our band name. We put a lot of work into like getting it all together, and now it's done. It's kind of sad, but I mean it feels good because it's all went well.
It's hard to like feel anxious or like get nervous or anything when you're just like surrounded by people who you believe in and who believe in you.
All of our friends came out and yeah, they were all having fun and dancing.
I can only think about a few things that make me happier than this.
Thank you for tuning in to Ignite News. I'm Malika Aldrich.
And I'm Andrew Cameron. Stay classy, Hamilton.